Here we go, Wednesday morning. Sloan back with you on 700 WLW and down the home stretch here. A lot of people working hard today to not work as hard tomorrow. Maybe take tomorrow off and make it a 5-day week. I don't know. Depending on how things lie, maybe you got to work through the weekend. Maybe you have the whole week off. Good for you. We know we need a holiday weekend for sure, and that is coming up on Friday. So lots going on. I know that as we speak right now, we'll continue to follow the House taking up the Senate's version of the big, beautiful bill. Trump taking his victory lap somewhat prematurely because it's still got to get past the House now. So we'll follow that. Something else going on, too, that kind of fell between the cracks, and the question I think answered somewhat on Friday after the Supreme Court ruling and executive orders is when you become a U.S. citizen. Do you become a U.S. citizen at birth? Maybe not after Friday's decision. Is it after naturalization? You become a naturalized citizen. Well, guess what? That is now being challenged, too. Kind of quietly, the Trump administration published a memo directing attorneys to prioritize denaturalization proceedings against citizens who commit crimes. So is this just recent citizens, people who have recently become American citizens by taking the oath, or could it go deeper? Hell, I'm third-generation Italian. What about me? Pallavi Ahluwalia is an immigration attorney out of DFW at ahluwalialaw.com and joins with her analysis. Good morning. How you been?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be here. Good morning to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So this policy, this new memo, it would affect about 25 million U.S. citizens who immigrated after being born abroad. And for those who don't know, there's the process rights because you hear about anchor babies, and of course you have migrants and legals, and then you go, oh, a naturalized citizen is what? So just real quickly, for the benefit of those people who may have slept through 8th grade or have long since forgotten, as I have, denaturalization, the process is what? What does that involve?
So that requires you to have been a resident of the U.S. So it's not just you residing in the U.S., but be a permanent resident, the sacred wanted green card holder for 5 years, to have paid your taxes, to exhibit good moral character before you go through the naturalization process, file, wait your turn, go through questions that are about 100 civics questions about this country. And if you pass and you write English, you speak English, you are not subjected to any exceptions, you're then given naturalization, and then you become a naturalized citizen. So the process is, so for someone who's entering the country, say, for example, legally in the country from, and I'm just going to throw it out there, India, they will take maybe 20, 30 years before they achieve naturalization. For some other folks that come from different countries, say, for example, UK, they may take maybe 10 years before or 12 years before they get naturalized. So it takes a while. And of course, there are exceptions to all of this, but it takes a while before someone becomes a citizen of the country. They come in legally, go through their different legal processes and visas, then get to be residents, stay residents for 5 years, and then if they want, then they apply for NATS, and they get to be naturalized after that.
Right. So as we debate and discuss immigration and illegal immigrants and migrants and how all this thing works, that's the typical thing: is people come to this country, get a green card, get a visa, they wind up studying, they take the exam, they become sworn citizens and become American citizens, naturalized citizens, what it's called. And in this weekend coming up, for example, it always makes me proud as an American to see groups of people at local courthouses, counties, in D.C. and elsewhere, where sometimes hundreds and hundreds of people all take that oath and swear allegiance to the United States of America and become full-fledged citizens. It really is, especially this weekend when they do it, is inspiring.
Yes, it is. It is. It is their dream, and that's what this country is about.
When you did that, how long ago did you do it?
I came in here in 91.
Okay.
I came in as a spouse of someone who was working here legally.
Right.
And then I went to law school here. And then, before I went to law school, I was already a green card holder, permanent resident.
Right.
And then after that, so I took a little time before I decided to become an American citizen. So I stayed here as a resident, paid my taxes, did everything else. But once my kids were born here, I decided that you know what, we were going to live here.
You're going to be an American citizen.
We were not going to go back. And then I applied and got my citizenship. And that was in about 14, 15 years back.
What's that moment like for someone? I mean, I'm a born American citizen, and I did not go through the process and the hoops you had to jump through to come to this country. But for those who've lost sight of that and never been through it, which is most people listening, Ahluwalia, but that moment where you realize I'm an American citizen, what does that mean? How does that feel?
Well, it just kind of feels, you don't feel that you're an outsider at that point. You feel like, well, you're a citizen. So, you get teased, right? Okay, so now you have a different passport
Right.
from all of your folks back home. Like, okay, so you're not from, India anymore. But you kind of feel more tied to this country. But I guess you start to do that once you've kind of put your roots here and you start to live here, contribute to this country. And in my case, after almost a PhD in English literature, I decided to pivot towards being a lawyer and go to school here.
Yeah.
Right. So then you feel that you've studied the laws of this country. You feel proud of it. And then that's how you become a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And your kids won't know that, and certainly the grandkids won't. And that's part of, well, again, when we homogenize society, and that's the beautiful American dream, the great melting pot we talk about. So putting your lawyer hat on now, Pallavi, when I hear this story about, okay, well, we're going to start looking at naturalized citizens now and going, if you're foreign born, maybe like yourself, you come here, legal pathways, you take the oath, you become a lawful permanent resident, you're a U.S. citizen now. And now you hear the story about maybe Trump wants to deport naturalized citizens if they, and this is a fairly narrow list, by the way, of grounds for denaturalization. I think that leaves you a step back. Go, well, wait a minute now. If I'm, is this just for firstborn? I mentioned I'm a third-born Italian. My great-great-great-grandparents came over here on a boat. So, how far back do we go with this thing? It's one thing to talk about people who got into this country without the process that you did, the legal ways. But now it's different talking about going after folks who did it the right way, quote unquote, and now still may be sent back to their own country.
Correct. So the INA, which is the Immigration and Nationality Act, specifically 8 U.S.C. 1451, outlines the grounds for denaturalization. So this is not new. It's been codified within the CFR for a while, and there are specific procedures for denaturalization, and that are detailed in the CFR, right? So it is a specific chapter. It's written a certain way, and it is meant to have a high burden of proof. So that is already there. It's been used maybe, literally in the whole year for people that, go through that statistically, maybe, 50 to, 100 cases of denaturalization based on something really bad or something that was really hidden during the naturalization process that they should have shared, but they never did. Now, the concern here is a memo that was shared by the U.S. Department of Justice, the Civil Division, from the Assistant Attorney General, and this was on June 11th. And where it becomes a little murky, or it becomes a little concerning, and of course it's been picked up recently and by different media to discuss it, but they list a priority. So the priority for the Civil Division has been listed, and I'm just going to read out the broad ones. Combating discriminatory practices and policies, sure, good enough. Ending anti-Semitism, great. Protecting women and children, wonderful.
Yeah.
Ending sanctuary jurisdictions, okay. And then we have prioritizing denaturalization, okay. And then it lists a list of things that would, I don't know if I have enough time to.
Yeah, it is. So it'd be a 10-point. It's 10 points, and the reasons, grounds for denaturalization include national security threats, terrorism, espionage, that kind of thing, human rights violations, war crimes, torture, or if you're involved in organized crime and RICO, if you are charged with violent or sexual crimes, government financial fraud, which would be Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. private financial fraud, naturalization fraud, if you got your citizenship through corruption, fraud, or misrepresentation, if you didn't disclose prior felonies prior to the naturalization project. So all those, I look at that and go, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're you get your citizenship and now you're involved in human trafficking, probably with connections to the old country, certainly looking at this going, well, do we want you here because you came here under false pretenses, kind of like a Trojan horse almost. But I guess here I look at it and go, well, they also have this area about referred criminal cases. That's cases tied to criminal charges not covered under other priorities and other significant cases. It sounds like there's all these concrete things. And then, well, we've got this vague area over here. Don't pay attention to too much. Like, if we decide we don't like you, we can show you the door. Now, that one to me doesn't seem right.
Okay, so that number 10 out there, which is any other cases referred to the civil division that the division determines to be sufficiently important to pursue. So it is a gray area. It's not defined, and that becomes a concern because it's a catch-all that can catch anyone that can be considered. So if you don't like, and this happens sometimes where, governments who are a little authoritarian may say, okay, if you are anti this government, then you're anti the country, correct? Yeah. It just it's a slippery slope. And it is something that can get people in trouble. And sure enough, and where I saw this, which raised my concern, and I was alarmed now, we know that there is a lot that's going on right now in New York, the mayor's race, right? And there are a lot of MAGA movements saying denaturalize this person and Zoran Mamdani, and so that he doesn't go forward. So now you can, literally, you can say, okay, he's so-and-so, pro so-and-so, anti so-and-so, and then you become, and now we have a political opponent who is no longer someone that, is protected by just being a naturalized citizen.
Right. Naturalized citizen, and now he's the Democratic candidate for Zoran, the Democratic candidate for the mayorship in New York. He wants to make it since he's a socialist and got the nomination. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But if, under that guise, okay, are you a political enemy? You're threatening. He's saying he's going to kick ICE out of New York City. Trump saying the hell you are. Could that be grounds for someone like that being denaturalized as a citizen? And that doesn't seem to be, I get crimes and falsifications, but you kind of knew who this guy was when you allowed him in the country in the first place. And when you're an American citizen, like anything, you have a right to political speech and protest.
Correct. So this topic is mainly resurfaced right now because it's become a priority of the government to proceed forward and go and denaturalize people. But as long as the list is, concrete and, you're involved in RICO charges, you're, a drug peddler, you're, somebody that was not known. But see, if you already, so there's one more point to understand. If you were convicted of a crime and then you've served your time, right? And it was not on the list of deportable or inadmissible offenses, you're okay. You've paid your dues. That doesn't mean that now suddenly you're out of the country again, right? You can't reanalyze that.
Yeah, we let them in and we screen them. Now, if you falsified stuff, different story. But there are people who will fall into crimes for whatever reason. A lot of reasons why people commit crimes. Should we be deporting, essentially overturning your U.S. citizenship because of that? I think in some of these severe cases, when you talk about organized crime and human rights violations and violent crimes and things like that, absolutely, it should be on the table. But when we get into some of the vaguer areas, and I would also point out, too, the difference between courts here. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil case. So that's an important distinction, right?
Correct. There is much of the talk that says that it was a criminal conviction, then there is a higher burden of proof. What I'm reading, but I have not seen it play out yet, that there will be a lower burden of proof and you may not be entitled to an attorney, right? So it's not like, so there is, because they are pursuing this through the civil division. You understand?
Yes.
The announcement is through the civil division. So they're saying So if it's a civil case, then the burden of proof is lower, right, to establish the eligibility for denaturalization, and there is not a specific right to representation, right? So that also becomes concerning, because it's not where you will definitely be able to defend yourself, or should be able to defend yourself based on a charge.
She is Pallavi Ahluwalia, immigration attorney, ahluwalialaw.com. She's on the Scott Sloan Show this morning talking about this memo that came out from the Trump administration regarding citizens of the United States. Great topic as we head in the 4th of July weekend, that you're a naturalized citizen, meaning you've gone through the proper channels to become a U.S. citizen and have taken the oath. But there's a list of about 10 things on here. If you violate them, organized crime, undisclosed felonies, basically lying about your application, you could be denaturalized, and then you're subject to deportation to your home country. But there's a couple of points in here that are very vague and kind of leaves it up to the government to decide, well, none of these other charges stick, we'll get you on this one. And that seems grossly unfair. I mean, we should have a pretty set list here of things that we'd agree on are crimes. And if you're here with nefarious intent, meaning you maybe Trojan horsed your citizenship or decided, hey, I'm going to get a criminal enterprise, maybe we don't want you after all, and we can revoke that. Is there anything in here that subscribes to a time period? I guess if maybe it's, I don't know, a few months after you become naturalized, different than someone who's been here, as I pointed out, for 3 generations.
Correct. I mean, when do you go back? How far do you go back? There was something yesterday that I saw on X that talked about, even if you're born here, that there was a statement that was made by the president that you could be subject to this, because we are ready to now remove. And I think maybe it was an overstatement and not really, exactly right, or maybe it's the out of context statement that I've seen. But it just causes concern is how far is going back far for this process. Yeah,
exactly. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much again, Pallavi Ahluwalia at ahluwalialaw.com, who's an immigration attorney on the show this morning, trying to maybe set things up here, give a greater explanation. This is going to be, I think the story's going to get some legs maybe next week, but we shall see how the news cycle works out. All the best to you. Thanks again.